Hey guys, I want to just share some answers to a question that we are seeing more frequently now as more sanctioning bodies and tracks go to a zero ride height or basically no ride height rule. So what we have guys asking us, well, is it better to run zero ride height, or is it better to have to run more ride height? In other words, is it better to have no travel or to have suspension travel? So we just want to touch on this real quick and share with you. So basically, when you hear zero ride height, what people mean by that is you're running the car basically down at its track height or track position right out of the pits, which means the car is low, especially the left side. Typically is already down pretty much at its travel, or it's set up to get very minimal travel. And sometimes the right side is already there. Sometimes the right side may get a little bit of additional travel. So let's just go over some pros and cons real quick on this. So one big advantage to a zero ride height package is wheel position. Your wheel positions are already where they need to be. I mean, you don't have to wait for the suspension to travel, for jacking to be optimized, for camber to be optimized. So it's already there. Definitely saves a little bit of headache. You don't have to worry about stuff like bump steer because there isn't any bump hardly, or bump steer is greatly minimized. So that's a big advantage. Uh, there's a lot of disadvantages to it too, and that's what I want to kind of touch on. One of the biggest disadvantages right off the bat is balance. While it helps wheel position to start out at track height, it hurts balance because the lower we start the car, the stiffer we have to run our spring package, which will be our primary spring and or our bump spring. The stiffer we have to make our overall spring package to keep the car from over traveling. The stiffer your spring package is, the more the wheel load changes, or the quicker the wheel load changes as the car travels. So all of a sudden, a small amount of travel differential in a higher travel package, which might not have made 20 pounds or 50 pounds difference on the tire, now all of a sudden can make 200 or 300 pounds of difference. And we're talking about 10 or 20 thousandths inch of travel. Which is a super small amount. So a zero ride height or a really stiff spring combination wreaks havoc on balance. Now, some cars can get away with this, take a NASCAR or even a Formula One type of application, because they have so much downforce, and the downforce counteracts that balance change. It holds that extra constant pressure. On our short track stuff, though, we don't have that massive amount of downforce helping hold the car down and helping keep the tires planted. So those minor balance changes really make a big difference to us. Another disadvantage to zero ride height is the tires don't like it. And let me explain to you what I mean by that. So here I've got just a simple graph, and I've got travel down here and I've got load over here. And we're just going to start out here at 2,800 pounds. And we got to remember here, so let's pretend that our car is 2,800 pounds. And this is our static weight. That's how much the car weighs in the shop, sitting in the pits. Well, the starting point is the same whether you run zero ride height or a high travel setup. The starting point is the same. The car always is going to weigh 2,800 pounds either way. The ending point is always going to be the same. So the total amount of load on the car, when it gets down in the corner, when you have vertical force and lateral force and longitudinal force, when all those forces combine and load up the tires, the total load of the car is going to be the same, whether you have zero ride height or high travel. So our starting point's the same and our ending point's the same. And we're going to say here we're starting out at 2,800 pounds and we're ending at 4,800 pounds once the car is fully down in the corner. We'll call that like a corner entry load number. So starting point's the same, the ending point's the same. The difference is how much you travel. So look here, if we have let's call it a high travel setup, 2,800 pounds, we're here at 3 inches of travel, we're out here. Now let's go to a low travel, or we'll call it an extreme low travel or zero ride height type of setup. So we're starting here and we're only traveling to here. And let's just say that this right here is, and this is actually probably more like 3/4 of an inch of travel. A lot of the zero ride height stuff is only getting 3/8 to a half inch of travel. So it would be even worse than what we're showing here. So your tires having to go from 2,800 pounds to 4,800 pounds in this amount of time. The tire don't like that. You wouldn't like that either if somebody was hitting you. Like if I were going to hit you, and if I hit you slower, it's not gonna hurt as bad as if I hit you faster, and that's the difference. Zero ride height means the tire is having to gain this amount of load in a really fast period of time, versus a high travel setup allows the tire to gain that load in a longer period of time. Now, when the car's on the track, the truth is it never gets back to 2,800 pounds. It's actually somewhere up in here. So it won't be quite this exaggerated. And when you're on the track, as a general rule, you're not traveling this full amount either. You're staying somewhere in a window in here. The bottom line is, though, at zero ride height, you have to run a far stiffer package. Anytime you run a stiffer package, the amount of time that the tire has to absorb the load and make grip is way lower. So you're making it way harder on the tire to actually absorb the impact, absorb the load, and grip up, which means you're way more apt to lose load quicker with a zero ride height package than what you are a slightly higher travel package. And I'm not saying that either one is better. That's just the way it is. So that's the main things to keep in mind. Now, there are certain kind of tracks that are going to be more apt to allow a quicker ramp up of wheel load, and those are going to be your smoother tracks and your faster tracks. So tracks that have higher downforce, which means you're going faster, so it's creating more downforce, and tracks that are smooth. They don't have any bumps, so they're not causing any spikes. Because you can imagine with a stiff package like a zero ride height package, when you hit bumps, it's shocking the heck out of the tire, and the tire can't take it. Now, the driver will ultimately fix it, and he fixes it simply by slowing down. He's got to back the corner up, so it gives the tire more time. It doesn't hit the bump, say, as fast. But that's not what you want, because then we're slower. So lower grip tracks and lower speed tracks or bumpy tracks absolutely don't like this really fast load ramp up. They want a slower ramp up. So this is kind of how you decide between a stiff package versus a soft package. A zero ride height package is always going to be stiff because you don't have any choice. I will say this: if you run a really stiff package like this, like we would in a zero ride height package, when you hit it and you're on good tires and everything lines up, it's awesome. It's bad fast, because the thing about it, it's just throwing the load to the tire quickly. The tire can take it, and I mean, you go out and you can be super quick. That's why you can be really quick and qualified on a package like this, and sometimes may not be near as good at the end of the race, because the news out of the tire doesn't have as much grip. It can't absorb this really aggressive load curve. And you have to back the corner way up and slow way down to get it. But when you hit it right, it's awesome. The problem is, the stiffer the package, the harder it is to hit right. So it goes from lower maintenance to higher maintenance when it comes to chasing the balance of the car. Another final question that we get, and I'll ask, well, if we run zero ride heights, do we need to go through stuff like pulling the car down or checking other alignment things? Well, the answer is yes. If you want to really stay on top of it, you absolutely need to still pull the car down, because remember, the starting point and the ending point's the same. You haven't changed that. The car is going through the same transition in load. The difference is it's got a lot less time to get there. So if anything, it actually probably makes it more important to stay on top of your setup dynamically when you're running a zero rod height type package, because balance changes so quickly. In a zero rod height package, little things like right rear travel are so much more sensitive than what it is in a higher travel package. So it actually makes us need to pull the cars down more often to stay on top of exactly how our setups are changing. Sway bar load, things like that are also more critical in this kind of package. So hopefully that helps. Um, uh, Completely off of data, just give an opinion. I, I think for most tracks, most of our short tracks, especially our lower grip tracks, the probably ideal place is to land somewhere in between these two setups. I don't necessarily know that you need to have really high travel, which makes us really chase camber and wheel position change. And typically, most of the tires don't like this really aggressive curve. So probably somewhere in between is where you're going to end up ideally. But hopefully this helps explain a little bit of the zero ride height stuff.